Well, I just wanted to start out by saying I watched the movie. It was amazing. Definitely choked me up. It was incredible how you guys, you know, took over such incredibly complex characters. So I wanted to ask you guys, how was your experience in dealing with characters that had such depth?
Um, I think um, I think that in the past, the things that I've worked on have been more about high production value than character development or scene work. So for me, it was a really pleasant surprise to be able to show up to set and really just be an actor. There wasn't really any outside elements to distract us, which I think made it much easier. And I also, really enjoyed the intensity that Billy brought and the intensity that all the actors brought. I think we all really, showed up with our game face every day, and we were all very aware of what the other needed to facilitate, the film that we were trying to make.
Yeah. Kind of in that same vein, I was wondering, you kind of spoke to this, but from what I've read about all of you guys, you have had experience on very high production sets, and this being more of an indie film, I was wondering what kind of environment that created in developing your characters, and if you felt you were given the liberty to really explore the dimension of your characters.
Yeah, sure. There was lots of freedom, you know. I think it definitely had that indie vibe, and like Aramis, just I was also it was kind of cool to because RUNT was my first indie movie, so it was really cool to kind of really like sit down and get grounded and like really kind of play and find ourselves molded in these characters and really explore like the emotional spectrum of that with Cameron and Billy and who was our director and yeah, also, everyone was just a great person behind the camera. And it was really awesome how, like people like Cameron and Aramis got to kind of bring the intensity in a scene. And then when it was over, they found the right boundary of like showing that they're a good person and helping people make people feel comfortable around the set. I got to learn from them in that source as well.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, because I can only imagine when it cuts and you guys have just filmed something, high intensity. It's so great that y'all had an environment that was very supportive. Kind of speaking again to the depth of y'all's characters, I felt this film did a really good job of portraying the complex choices that go into teenagers making kind of self-destructive choices. I feel it did a really good job of setting up the dominoes for what can lead to what can initially be seen as a bad choice. So would you kind of agree and like would you think that it's more representative of teenagers today and does a good job of kind of getting away from like the angsty teenage archetype?
I think this film is a wake up call to some people because especially pertinent to today's society when kids feel alone and hopeless and have no one to turn to and they're dealing with the neglect from the adults in their lives and so they resort to violence and aggression as a form of managing the stress and anxiety that's so relevant. So I think the film does a really great job of portraying what can happen when you go down the wrong path without the support or guidance from peers and family and adults in the community. So the film really addresses what can happen when you go down a downward spiral and just how difficult it is to come back from that.
Definitely, for sure. I think it definitely does an amazing job of that and giving the insight to what exactly like you said, what can happen if kids are left with their own kind of tendencies and the easy access they have to find ways to cope. again, kind of in that same vein, like you spoke, it does raise awareness for, easy access for teenagers to have violence, to cope with their turmoil. What is that kind of the message you would hope that your audience gains from this film, or is there a specific thing that you would hope an audience takes away from your performance?
Yeah, I think a big takeaway that we all hope audiences get from this is you know what? Thinking about it, it's kind of cool because the movie, I didn't think about this before, but kind of in the way Lord of the Flies is like, all right, so let's make a dark story about a group of kids being put in a setting with no adult guidance. And Lord of the Flies didn't come to me when I was talking about this movie because it's in such like a modern high school setting. And it's so cool. I didn't even think about it because often when you see kind of these modern takes on dark stories about kids being put in a setting and left on their own, it's done through a very like restrictive way, like Lord of the Flies. And it's very cool how RUNT kind of takes the approach of like several different perspectives and stuff. But yeah, definitely the big takeaway is what that isolation when teenagers go through, what that can lead to, the dark habits. Well, maybe more commonly, teenagers won't go as dark as characters like Vic do in this movie, but using that same kind of perspective, teenagers can make really horrible decisions when it comes to drug abuse or alcohol abuse from the same actions that spiral characters like Vic and Cal and Borgie, that same root of the issue. And so I kind of hope that audiences take away that root of the issue is the lack of communication between teenagers and adults, and how helpful that is, and how important guidance is when it comes to young people.
I definitely think that's what I gained from it. It was definitely an amazing insight to what y'all said with the lack of adult guidance. And excuse me, sorry. So in the vein of what you were talking about of the messages that are taken away, was there a pressure, not a pressure per se, but an awareness on set of releasing this film in today's environment and hoping to gain awareness to like teenage violence? I've seen the amazing organizations that have been paired with the release of this film, so it seemed that there was a big social awareness on set.
I feel like, to be perfectly honest, I feel like in retrospect, Cameron was way more aware of this than I was. And I feel like during scenes, Cameron probably kind of, because acting's reacting, he probably gave me something in a take that addressed this kind of awareness in an acting way, and I didn't. But the way I reacted off of Cameron in that brought that awareness forward. And so I was probably way more naive than Cameron was, because he started the wielding piece in the Cameron Boyce Foundation. And so I guess on my end, no, I wasn't that aware until I kind of got more mature and older and realized what the film does tackle and what Cameron was doing, which is really special.
I also think when we showed up to set, we weren't really projecting the theme or the message of the movie too much. We were really like individually focused on our characters and the roles that we played in the movie. And I think the final product is kind of when we, at least for me, when I realized, the social high school topics that we were touching on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think we were just so immersed in the characters. I don't want to say we turned a blind eye to, what was happening in real time outside of our bubble. But I mean, I can speak on my behalf that I was just so into what was going on in the here and now and what we were doing that I didn't even really make the parallel to what was going on. Yeah, it was